Hi everybody, welcome back to the Stellium Astrology podcast. I'm Stephanie James and I am the founder of this podcast and also stelliumastrology.com. Today we're talking about the second sign of the zodiac, which is Taurus. Taurus the bull. Now, Taurus is at that point, she follows on from Aries, and whereas Aries is all about being the best and coming first, Taurus really is more about enjoying where she's at. She's not really too fussed about getting there fast. She actually quite enjoys hanging around a bit. Kind of reminds me of me and my sister when we were little. I was basically an ADHD child, like completely nuts and just always busy doing something, and a little bit hot-headed as well, probably because I've got a Moon-Mars square. And my sister was like the complete opposite. She's a Sun Venus. Venus rules Taurus. And she used to sit there after like PE and in infant school. And the teachers called my mum in and said, we think that Hayley may need to, there may be some learning difficulties there or something, because when it comes to like putting her clothes on after PE, she doesn't actually bother. So we have to dress her. I mean, are you teaching her how to dress at home? And my mum said, yeah, she does do that at home. But I mean, why do something if you can sit there and other people will do it for you? And I think that's a kind of very Taurian essence. It's just kind of like, why make the effort? Why expend your energy if you don't have to? So that's not the cut and dry story of Taurus. That was just a weird little anecdote, a funny little anecdote from my childhood. And the difference between me and my sister, me being a very Marsy type and my sister being quite Venusian, which is a very Aries, Taurus kind of flavour. So Taurus sort of follows on from Aries, and Aries is, buzzing around doing everything that it's got to do, and Taurus kind of just wants to sit back and enjoy things and enjoy the kind of the pleasures that life has to offer. So the glyph for Taurus is a circle with two little handles coming off it, which kind of looks like the bull's horns. So this is another horned sign, just like Aries. And actually, you can also look at the glyph as it looks a little bit like the fallopian tubes coming off of the womb, the female reproductive system, which kind of ties in quite nicely with the fact that Taurus is a sign of fertility. It's a very body-orientated sign. And, it's a very sensual sign, not just sensual in the senses of, being sensual to look at or to be with, to touch, but actually all of the senses, so sight, smell, sound, taste, and touch. And Taurus really experiences life through the senses. It's a very grounded, and it really enjoys the pleasures of life. So in one of my books, it describes Taurus as being a connoisseur. And I have to agree, every Taurian I've ever met has usually quite a sensitive palate. They can taste flavours that I can't even tell are there. They're usually very into perfumes and really nice smells. And they like to be touched by the people that they love. I don't think they're too into being touched by strangers. I think for Taurus, the sense of touch is incredibly intimate, and not that touching someone wouldn't be an intimate act, but they might not particularly like somebody to just come over and put their hand on their shoulder while they're talking to them, or just come out and just give them a great big hug. That's not something that necessarily Taurus would be about, particularly not in these days of social distancing, but I'm talking pre-corona. Taurus, I guess, has a sense of who they want to touch them, how they want to touch them, and not necessarily everybody's invited to that party. So, the body is a point of sensitivity for Taurus. Now, I picked out a quote for Taurus, which is, know your worth, know the difference between what you're getting and what you deserve. And that really kind of epitomizes Taurus, because it's not about, Venus is the sign that rules Taurus, the planet that rules Taurus, which kind of is connected to like value and money, like financial, in a financial sense, but also femininity. But with Taurus, as it being a Venus ruled sign, it really is a sign that is connected to having values, having a value system, usually quite a strong sense of morality. They like to accumulate wealth and objects, so things that are represent physical objects, which represent the kind of effort that they've made through their hard work, so that they can, it's a symbol of everything that they've earned, basically. The Taurians that I know lean a little bit towards hoarding sometimes. They do tend to collect stuff. They like to collect items, and like to have display the things that they've got. Like, they like to see their lovely objects. It's not, I wouldn't say they're necessarily a very minimalistic sign. I think that they're, I'm not saying that the more the merrier, but I don't think the minimalist look goes so great for Taurus. I'm not saying that every Taurus is the same, but Taurus is definitely about stuff. They like to have stuff, they like to have objects, and usually they've got good taste. Venus is a very tasteful sign, very aesthetic focused. So Taurus also is that way inclined, being ruled by Venus. Yes, so knowing your worth. Another good Taurian one is because you're worth it, because it's about not just having objects which reflect the effort you've put in, but having stuff. You're worth it. You should buy that stuff if you want it. You should have that stuff. And it's usually about quality with Taurus as well. It's not necessarily about quantity. It's not about having all sorts of rubbish. It's not about going to Poundland and spending 20 quid on 20 little things. It's about spending, investing in something that is of good quality, that might last you a bit longer, but actually it's, it feels more comfortable on the skin. It's a nice material. It's quite a beautiful item. So Taurus kind of has something to do with personal worth and how much you value yourself, not just about the actual values, what you consider to be valuable. And with Taurus as well, I think I've kind of covered the fact that they're, well, maybe I haven't. They tend to be quite an attractive sign. There is an attractiveness about Taurus, and they may not be the most attractive person in the room, but there's definitely something about the way that they carry themselves. There's something very attractive about their body. To look at them, there's just something very, I'm going to say, alluring about them, whether or not they're aware of it themselves. And with the body with Taurus, they can be either quite heavy set, or they can be quite slender and delicate and almost swan-like. So Taurus, unlike Aries, likes to really chew over things and really think about things and take considered steps, rather than taking any old, let's just go, let's just do this, I'm raring to go. They're much more, what's the best use of my energy? I think Taurus can be about conservation in a sense, conserving their energy, and, sometimes can be seen as perhaps a little bit of a traditional sign. It's a fixed earth sign. We covered fixity in an earlier episode, and we've covered earth signs as well. Now, fixed earth is the slowest of all of the earth signs. Fixity is the mode which kind of describes not really moving to something. It's quite happy in its place, almost a little bit here and now kind of. I kind of think of it as a bit Buddhist, Taurus, like it's, appreciating everything you've got. And I know that Buddhism isn't about being materialistic or anything, but there's a sense of, being in the body and, really consciously experiencing life. And I feel like Taurus has the ability to do that. As with all the fixed signs, they're very pinned to the moment and experiencing life as it kind of happens, and not necessarily looking back at the past, or looking too far ahead into the future. They're about making their current situation as comfortable as possible. And with earth signs as well, there is a sense that productivity is needed. The art of Taurus is being able to focus so much on what's going on now, or what they want to achieve, and building what they need to achieve up from the ground upwards. So they're really good at a real foundation sign, very solid to the core, and very wedged into the foundations so that you can have something solid to build on. And whatever they lay down, these foundations, it really creates a solid structure for the future. And so they're often associated as a kind of building sign. And if you think about the bull, which is the animal that's connected with Taurus, the bull is the most enduring animal. It's bovine. So you often, when you look at Taurus, you can almost see there's something bull-like about them. Either they'll have their hair piled up on top of their head, and it kind of looks like where the horns are sitting in the skull. It sounds a bit weird, but they do tend to have something piled up, or they might have like a bit of a shoulders a bit hunched up, and almost like that kind of bull-like stance. Like I said, they can be elegant as well, but there's a sense of bullishness about them, and but they are incredibly enduring. Fixed Earth is very, very slow moving, so they can be seen to be a little bit stubborn. It can take a little while for them to get to where you're trying to encourage them to go. They're not necessarily concerned getting anywhere too quickly. So actually, maybe the motto for Taurus would be slow and steady wins the race. The life stage for Taurus really is kind of like that toddler time of life where they're saying, that's mine. That's my toy car. How dare you? I was talking about me and my sister, and now my sister's got 2 children, and the first one's had a lot of attention, and she's used to having a lot of attention, and she's got Venus and Aries, but she is a Taurus. And the second child is a Scorpio. Now, the second child is kind of just left to her own devices. She's not neglected by any stretch of the imagination. She's very much loved and fussed over, but I think that parents with their initial child, they kind of fuss over the first one, and the second one is allowed to bump its head every now and again. And they just tend to they don't tend to fuss as much over the second child. The second child gets a bit of an easier ride, and I think that when it comes to toys now, when people are buying toys for my sister's second child, the first child is like, no, I want that. That's mine. And it is that stage in life where you have to kind of learn about what's yours and what's not, and kind of about learning that sharing lesson, which Taurus can be connected to as well. So, as mentioned, Venus is the ruling planet for Taurus, and we'll cover the planets later on down the line. And the part of the body, not just the entire body, is Taurus. It's very body orientated, but also the neck is quite connected. And like I said, you can get those swan-like Taurians. I think Audrey Hepburn is a Taurus, and she's got that beautiful, graceful neck. And she's actually quoted as saying that she preferred casual and comfortable clothing, even though she was Givenchy's star model, basically, the face of Givenchy. And Vivian Leigh as well has a Taurus ascendant, Scarlett O'Hara from Gone with the Wind, and she also known for having resting bitch face, but also having being very elegant and beautiful. But sometimes you can get Taurians that have got that quite a wide neck, heavy set body, and quite immovable as well. It's just, you can't really push them, you can't coerce them, but that's getting more into the fixity of it. But there is definitely a heaviness there can be about Taurus. So they can either be quite graceful and elegant and gliding, or they can be quite heavy-footed and heavy-handed. Definitely living with 2 Taurus ascendants, one of them would slam his hand down on the door handle, and it would make you jump, because it was just his way of doing it. He just didn't just put his hand on the door handle and turn it. He would just grab the handle really hard, and it was just very heavy-handed. So at best, Taurus is a sign which can be considered by many as being a rock. They're sort of a point of stability, really, and they're quite a consistent sign. They are quite cautious. They like to maybe take the tried and tested method and play things safe, and generally quite placid. Also quite pragmatic. They definitely, I think, if you think about value and of finances and worth, expenditure comes into the financial aspect of that. But also for Taurus, I think the key thing for Taurus is expenditure of her energy, which is of greatest worth to her. And so I think expenditure is a kind of a Taurian thing as well. They definitely like to spend money on objects that they find beautiful and appealing. Taurus is generally quite a simple sign, not overly complicated, generally quite straightforward. Can be known for a little bit of black and white thinking sometimes, to be a little bit too straightforward. Generally quite sincere. Usually Taurians say it how it is. They don't tend to be too, not in a kind of really blunt, direct way like Aries that can be quite confrontational, but actually Taurus can be perhaps kind of a bit straightforward, maybe lacking a bit of tact sometimes, I think. But generally sincere and honest, very determined. Once they set their sights on something and they decide that's what they want to do, they stick at it. So known for being very committed and loyal, and very persistent and patient. We could look at that, we could flip it and say stubborn, couldn't we? Because that's what, persistent, patient, determined, committed, that's the positive vibration. And if you wanted to just wrap it up in one sentence, you could say stubborn too, which Taurians have been known to be. At worst, they can be possessive and unable to let go, to their detriment, holding on to things that they really should just, learn to release and move on. It can be the kind of really getting stuck in a kind of feedback loop with Taurus where they just don't really want to let go. They can't really get their head around moving on. They can be uncompromising and incredibly slow at times. And I guess the word bullying goes with Taurus as well. And I guess because they can be overly simple sometimes and not really wanting to overcomplicate things, some people might view them as dull. But that does not mean that they are all dull. It's just, it's a potential. So Taurus can be the sign of keeping it simple and breaking things down into essential building blocks. They're very security motivated. They definitely find security in being surrounded by objects, and ownership is definitely a driving force for Taurus. And I guess, as I've said before, when they're laying down their foundations, there is something about Taurus having to produce something tangible. There's definitely something to be said about building something that reflects the effort and attention that they've paid on something. Whether or not they're intentionally doing it to start with, it's something that really drives Taurus, perhaps on a subconscious level. So this lovely, realistic and practical earth sign Taurus, I have my subscriber chart. Let's go and have a look at my subscriber chart, which is Ali. Now, Ali signed up to the mailing list and submitted her details to be discussed on the podcast. And Ali has got, where are you, Ali? Gosh, where are you? There you are. 1, 2, 3 planets in Taurus. She has Sun, Jupiter and Venus in Taurus. Venus being the ruler of Taurus. And we have talked about Ali. I think we talked about Ali when we were discussing earth signs, and also when we were discussing a lack of fire. Now, obviously, Taurus being a fixed earth sign, you might go, oh, Taurus is stubborn. That's like the key word that most people jump to. It's always really good to try and remember a few other things and learn how to articulate that same trait, but in a much more productive way, so that all the Taurian people that you know don't get annoyed when you say stubborn. Yeah, oh, can you say, like, is there anything else that you can say? But actually, with Ali, I know she's fed back to me on some of the topics that we discussed that I discussed during the show, and she said that yes, she did really relate to having a lack of fire in her chart. having all that Taurus stuff on the bottom of her chart, down at, sitting quite low in her chart below the horizon, it's the area where things don't get seen by most people, but it's also really quite nice for her as somebody with a Pisces ascendant, which is very watery, and having a watery moon as well. It's actually quite nice to have a lot of Taurus stuff at the bottom of the chart. You can almost imagine that she's got an anchor holding her in place. So anything that kind of sweeps her away, the emotional stuff that occurs, that she may go through, and the challenges that she faces outside in the big bad world, because she has got a lot of water in her chart and she's got a few things above the horizon. She's very much anchored, and I guess there's definitely a place, there's a sense of security that Ali has. And she also has the two benefic planets. Now, we talked about this as well before, where the benefic planets are the beneficial planets. They bring joy, bring luck, and they're generally quite nice to have in the chart. But actually, when you've got them in a sensual, loving sign like Taurus, they may be too much of a good thing. It's that indulgence, overindulgence, definitely struggling to. It's almost. Taurus is very good at discipline and commitment to an idea, commitment to a vision, commitment to a goal. But on the other side of that, if you've got two planets that constantly require indulgence, and Jupiter doesn't really have an off button, and Venus just wants to enjoy sweet things, beautiful things. Maybe that Venus likes to spend her money. And in Taurus as well, buying lots of lovely things. Could be kind of a shopaholic signature, especially in the third house, which isn't necessarily the house of spending money, but it's the house of commerce. And perhaps maybe there's a bit of a spendaholic in there somewhere. For some reason in my head, I'm thinking of the Sophie Kinsella books at the moment, the Shopaholic series, which I loved all those books. I don't normally read books like that, but those ones really appealed to me. And then they made a film out of it as well with Isla Fisher in it. But having Jupiter and Venus in Taurus kind of really magnifies that Taurian essence. And so, Ali may have a particular interest in, art, beauty, I'd say potentially cooking, enjoying food. There's that connoisseur again. A lot of Taurians that I know really love things like craft beer, tasting the different flavours and the different subtleties. I personally could take it or leave it. I've had to really learn how to adjust to craft beer. I've always been more of just a normal beer drinker, just drink lager or have a glass of wine every now and again. But the Taurus loves to try things for the experience of the flavour. So not necessarily somebody who drinks to get drunk, but drinks to taste the different flavours which come with drinking things like craft beer or even gins, anything where, taste is kind of emphasised. And so, fine dining, cooking, where the subtle flavours can be noticed, that kind of thing as well. So Ali, I think we talked about indulging and locking herself away and having a nice bath, and really indulging herself sometimes. And that's not just limited to going off and having a bath or something. It's actually kind of the senses in general. It's a very sensual sign, and actually possibly as well to do with dance. I know a lot of Taurians that like to express themselves through their body. And really like to. One of my clients who is a Taurus moon had a dance school. She opened the dance school when there was a stellium in Taurus, and it was like, an enormous amount of planets in Taurus, and the dance school stayed there for years and years. It endured all sorts of crazy stuff happening to it, and it's, like I said, a very enduring sign. And things have changed recently, so she's not doing the dance school anymore. Hi Trey, by the way, if you're listening. But she is a dancer and has always been a dancer and has always loved to express herself through her body. And so dance could also play a part. So I was looking at a few celebrities that we could look at. Obviously, I mentioned Audrey Hepburn. I think Vivian Leigh, who plays Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind, has a Taurus ascendant. Melania Trump has a stellium of planets in Taurus, but no birth time that we know of. She's an X rating, so she's not even dirty data. There's nothing out there for her. But actually, another celebrity, Sheryl Crow. She's a very fixed chart. Actually, she's got an Aquarius stellium, and she's also got Moon and Ascendant in Taurus. But actually, I was looking at Uma Thurman. I was going to talk about. I like Uma Thurman. I think she's very, she's just very versatile actress. She's been in a lot of things. But actually, and I think she's got a stellium in Taurus as well. But I settled in the end on Jack Nicholson. And the reason I chose Jack Nicholson is because he does look a bit bull-like. If you look at him, he does have a kind of, you can almost imagine if you think of a bull sort of getting ready to charge. And I think he's got Venus, the ruler of his sun sign. So he's got Sun, Uranus and Mercury in Taurus. But he's got his ruling planet of Venus is in Aries. So it does have a bit of an Aries flavour about it. But either way, so you can think of that as a kind of a bull who's a little bit aggravated maybe. And you can almost see if you look at Jack Nicholson, he has that kind of head tilted down, eyes looking up, bit of a naughty look on his face. He does look very mischievous, doesn't he? And you can almost see him as the bull that could charge at any moment, really, at any given moment. And obviously he's been suffering health issues in his later life. Uranus has currently been moving through Taurus, and Uranus, he has Uranus there as well, so he will have had his Uranus return in Taurus, or is currently undergoing it. And so that indicates big change, and he's obviously got a lot of health issues now. So sad to see that somebody so talented is, I don't know if he's got dementia or Parkinson's, but he's certainly gone through some big changes over recent years. But that doesn't take away from the fantastic back catalogue and acting CV that he has. And Jack Nicholson has been in a number of incredible films. But off the top of my head, just thinking about it, I think his breakthrough role was in a film called Easy Rider with Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper. And that was a fantastic film, kind of about freedom. It was, I think, two bikers going over to Mardi Gras, just travelling across America, living a life of freedom. He played kind of like, it was really funny. I think he played an alcoholic in the film. He wasn't in it for long. He had a short role. It was pre his major fame days, but they found themselves in prison, and Jack Nicholson was in prison with them. And when he got out of prison, I think it turned out he was either a lawyer or he was the police chief's son. But they let him out and they gave him his bottle back. He literally just had to be put in a cell so he could sober up. But he travelled off with them and just went on a little adventure with them, just a short one. And he ended up smoking weed with them. And I think he said, "Oh, what is this? I don't think I can really afford to get addicted to something else." And I'm like, no, just try it. And he smoked a bit of the joint and then started going off into this big conversation about antiquated systems and freedom, and talking about potentially aliens. And then sort of looked back at his joint and was like, "Oh, I could get used to this." It was a seriously amazing cameo in a film, or not even a cameo, like an initial discovery role in a film. It's a fantastic film, Easy Rider, such a classic as well. But I do have some quotes. He was also in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is a favourite of my mum and dad's. And Christian Slater played the what do you call it? The theatre, the West End version, and he played Jack Nicholson's role. And Christian Slater's a bit of a live wire as well. And actually, he's got Saturn in Taurus, which happens to be around Jack Nicholson's Uranus in Taurus as well, which is interesting that they've got that synastry. But I thought I'd just pick out a couple of quotes. I found loads of Jack Nicholson quotes. Here's a good one. My whole career strategy has been to build a base so that I could take the roles I'd want to play. I'd hate to think that a shorter part might not be available because I was worried about my billing. It's interesting that he's talking about building a base, that very Taurian, laying a foundation. Here's another lovely Taurian quote from Jack Nicholson. what's beautiful is all that counts, pal. That's all that counts. Because Taurus is a very attractive and beautiful sign. And another one, speaking of craft beer and flavour, is beer. It's the best damn drink in the world. I'd love to do Jack Nicholson's accent, but I would butcher it. I would absolutely butcher it. But yeah, he was in a number of films, obviously. And actually, I just absolutely love Jack Nicholson. And I think it's such a shame he's not well anymore. It is a real shame. So that's been Taurus. I've covered a fair amount in this episode. And I hope you've enjoyed it. If you're listening and enjoying it, screenshot it, share it on Instagram and tag me at Stellium Astro. If you want to be featured, just fill out the form, sign up as a subscriber at my website, stelliumastrology.com, and fill out the form, and I'll get you on this podcast at some point or another, for sure. You definitely will appear, believe me. And yeah, if you're enjoying it, share the episode with somebody who you think would enjoy it too. And if I have spoken about your chart in any of the episodes, not just this one, but preceding and forthcoming episodes, please let me know what you think. It would be great if you could subscribe, rate and review the podcast on iTunes. And if I have interpreted your chart for you, put a little something in there saying that I did that for you and whether or not it really resonated. Anyway, I'm off now. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, whatever you're up to. And I will speak to you next time when we're going to talk about Gemini and the wonderful gifts that are bestowed upon us by the chattiest sign of the zodiac. Take care, everyone. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.